Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is April 22nd, 2020. This is the Flight Sim News. So, since the last update, got a few different tidbits of information to report on. First up, reflected simulations. It also has to do with the AirCombatSim podcast, actually. The guy from Reflected Simulations ended up being a guest over on the AirCombatSim podcast, episode 7, Missions and Campaigns, part 2. Looks like he got together with Baltic Dragon, Saber TLA, and Apache 600, and Goat, who are all mission designers, and looks like they got together and talked about mission design and campaigns, and he goes on to say that he feels like he might have even learned something as well from the experience. So, pretty cool stuff. Next up, Deka Ironwork Simulations, the guys responsible for the F-15E. They've posted some pictures of gear, and they go on to say, Metal Gear Solid. Not the biggest piece of news, but one of the other things is they weren't going to participate in the free-for-all month initially with Eagle Dynamics. And they go on to say, since we just got notified of the upcoming free access event, the free access and discount info on the newsletter may not be accurate. After discussing with Eagle Dynamics, we decided to participate on both eShop and Steam. Looks like they're going to do a 1-week free access, and then I don't understand what they're saying here. They say 1 week free access plus 1 month, $15, 20% discount. I don't know if that means on Steam they're only going to do 1 week access and then just 1 month, or if for the month they're going to do that 20% discount. So whatever the case may be, it is free to fly at the moment. So what is unclear is if they're going to, do just 1 week of free access instead of an entire month. That would suck, and I honestly don't understand why some of these guys aren't participating. Heatblur in particular is not participating much in this scenario, and that I don't get. It would make sense for them to, let people fly the most awesome module that's out there. And same thing with Deka Ironworks. The JF-17 is pretty popular from what I've seen, so I don't know why these guys wouldn't let somebody fly it for free for a month and offer a reasonable discount, because this is your opportunity to make some money while people are home. So there is that. Razbam. These guys just keep coming out with update after update after update. So 9 hours ago, they threw up a video testing the Magic Slave function, radar slave to the Magic. I'll throw a link in the video as usual to those. In addition to that, they threw up some new 3D models of some naval ships, but the most exciting thing from the past few days was this. They're teasing us. They threw up an image of the F-15E Strike Eagle development picture of the cockpit. I just want to fly that like right now, but it's going to be a while yet, that's for sure, but pretty damn cool stuff, definitely. And these guys seem to be pretty busy out of all the module developers at the moment. So there is that. So Sergio over at the HeliSimmer has been up to some news as well. Low Level Heaven has reached out to the community, and they will start work on the new campaign next year. As the team explore the Gazelle a bit more, they will build the will to build a campaign for this helicopter has been growing for some time. Since a lot of time is necessary to develop such a product, Low Level Heaven decided to survey the community and find out if there was interest in having a campaign available. And there's definitely a demand for it from the poll that they took. And they go on to say that it looks like Low Level Heaven will start work on the new campaign for the Gazelle. and it will be a project for 2021. This isn't necessarily HeliSimmer news, but they reported on it and they had more information. So I was on the WinWing Facebook page earlier, and they popped up with this image of this new helicopter collective stick. And Sergio reports over at the HeliSimmer, the Chinese manufacturer is entering the helicopter flight simulation market and bringing a collective to the table. He goes on to say, we contacted WinWing to know more about the product, which should be released this summer, but the company declined to mention any details right now as the project is still in the very early stages. I don't know how they plan on to release something this summer if they are in the very early stages right now, but the company indicated that the collective should be used with their Super Taurus. WinWing is having a very smart approach to their line of products and doing something I have been trying to get some other companies to do as well, which is a modular design which allows to convert their products to be used for both fixed wing and helicopters. It looks like what he's saying is that the existing throttle should be able to be used with this new collective that they're going to come out with. Pretty interesting stuff. I think the only thing that worries me is I've seen a lot of information about these WinWing products, and the majority of them hasn't been very good. Initially, they had sent out review units to a variety of YouTubers, and they were plagued with all kinds of early design issues, many of which, and I've been following this, many of which appear to have been addressed, but many of which still, are issues. And it's a very expensive piece of hardware too. I think it's like $800 or something for the throttle and the stick both. It looks cool as hell. I'd like to get my hands on one and try them out eventually. But where do you even put that? That thing is massive. So there is the problem of where do you put something that big too. The average person is not going to be able to use that. Maybe the guy that's doing the sim pit, where he's got a scenario and has the room to accommodate that kind of stuff. But the average desk isn't going to hold that very well. Not only that, but if you look at the mechanism they've created here to mount that to a desk, it's very wobbly from what I've seen too. So it's all promising, but again, they haven't really proven themselves that much yet. Good news though for the helicopter flight sim community that we will actually get somebody that's making a reasonable collective. Next up is the guys from IL2 Great Battles. Since the 4.005 update that addressed a lot of damage modeling issues, the dev blog 248 is up, and in this they go on to show us a bunch of new images of tanks, tank interiors, and what they were calling Lend-Lease planes. That means you'll soon be able to witness RAF and Soviet pilots in the Spitfire Mark V and Mark IX, and RAF, USAF, and Soviet ones in P-40, P-47D, and B-25D, according to what country is specified in the mission file by its author. A bit later, when we complete the required animations for the new pilot models, this will also work for the A-20B and P-39L. So they have a bunch of new pilot models, which is pretty cool. And they are still continuing to polish and update 4.005. There was a patch, I believe, last week as well, after the initial 4.005. I will be sure to include a link to this page so you can check these out for yourself. I was clicking on them to bring them up, but it appears their website is having problems because it just does not want to load. Oh, wait a minute. It loaded this time. I was doing this a couple minutes ago, and it was just choking out. Like now. Watch, it's just going to choke out. So there's a problem with their website, apparently. However, you can reach the main page and check it out later. Maybe by the time the video goes live, you'll be able to check it out. Here's some fantastic news. So, for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, Microsoft has released their spec sheet for what the requirements are going to be for Flight Simulator 2020. The very minimum spec for AMD is going to be a Ryzen 3 1200, an RX 570, 2 gigabytes of VRAM, holy crap, 8 gigabytes of memory, 150 gigabyte of hard drive space, and a 5 megabyte or megabits download speed. I think that's pushing it. I can't even imagine how terrible it would look on that. And then the NVIDIA spec would be an Intel. I don't even know why they're calling it an NVIDIA and an AMD spec, because it's, I don't know, unless they meant a purely AMD spec where you're, because most people aren't using an AMD processor with an AMD card. They're using an AMD with an NVIDIA, or they're using, an Intel with an AMD card. So these little specs are kind of weird if you ask me. But the minimum NVIDIA spec is a GTX 770. The recommended, however, is Windows 10 with a Ryzen 5 1500 or an Intel i5 8400, a Radeon 590. Do people even use those anymore? And a GTX 970. That's still a pretty capable card today. I actually had one of those before the 2060, before the 2080 Super that I'd picked up. And they're talking that the recommended spec is 4 gigabytes of VRAM, 16 gigabytes of memory, and then 20 megabits bandwidth. The ideal spec, they're saying, is a Ryzen 7 2700X or an Intel i7 9800X. Such weird processors. I don't know why they just don't say 9700K. Radeon 567. Nobody even uses that card. And then an NVIDIA 2080. 8 gigabytes of VRAM, 32 gigabytes of memory, 150 gigabytes of hard drive space on an SSD, they say, and then 50 megabits down bandwidth. That's pretty reasonable for the ideal spec. I would almost have thought they would have said like a, RTX 2080 Ti, and a i9 9900K as the, high end. But I think those are pretty reasonable requirements for this. I've seen what it runs like on my system, which is a 9900K with 32 gigabytes and a 2080 Super, and it runs fine. So at least that is the alpha. So there is that. But I think the specs are very reasonable, and especially considering how good this thing looks. I almost wonder if they're accurate, to be honest. But that is the specs if you're wondering what it's going to take to run Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 when it does finally come out. I'll include a link to this at the bottom of the video as usual. Alrighty, WarThunder. Yesterday they had released a new update for WarThunder that addresses a variety of fixes and improvements for the T55, T62, T55AM, BMP2, AMX10RC, T44, T72A, T10M. Looks like a pretty big ground vehicles patch or update, if you will. I'll include a link to this exact changelog of theirs at the bottom of the video. And I just want to say WarThunder in general is something I've been really playing a lot more of recently. And I know a lot of you guys are going to go, oh, it's a game. How can you do that? DCS and IL2 and all this stuff is so much better. And you're right. In terms of a simulation, those are better. But there's something just fun about jumping in WarThunder and cruising these tanks around and blasting people. And it looks really good. It's an interesting battle environment. And they have done something that nobody else is really doing that well at the moment, which is they've created an online multiplayer sandbox, if you will, of just so many different environments and missions, and it incorporates, the ground units, the air units, naval units, all into one big giant scenario very well. there's a lot of stuff I haven't done in this until recently, and I've only started digging into like the simulator battles and some of the other things that they do, and it was really cool to be able to be like a tank on the ground and then getting strafed by, you know, aircraft up above, and then mid-game being able to, you know, almost like a kill streak, enabling the ability to jump in a plane and, you know, help defend your area. Just cool stuff, man. And it is really so much fun. And they've made it all the way up to the Cold War era. I believe they've just recently added the Draken, the Saab Draken, to the scenario. So much stuff. M1 A2 Abramses, Leopards. A lot of modern era stuff has made it into this at this point. And again, the environment is really inviting and it's really fun. I picked up an Apache the other day, the Israeli, you know, premium one, just to give it a shot, because we don't have anything else that lets us fly Apaches or Cobras. And you can do that in WarThunder. And granted, it is not a simulation in terms of the, you know, in terms of what we're used to in DCS or IL-2, but it's fun, and, you know, it's accessible. And it is pretty neat to be able to jump in and like shoot rockets at stuff, and, you know, chuck out some hellfires at some tanks off in the distance, you know. At the moment, it's all we got, you know, and it could be worse. Let's put it that way. It is a game that has simulation elements to it, and the key thing is technically it is free to play. You can earn most of the stuff. They have all the way from an A model down to a longbow Apache in here now, and pretty cool stuff. Nobody else is giving us that at the moment. So if you want that, you know, it's a long grind to be able to get there without buying one, but is what it is, man. It's free to play. Let's put it that way. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. The environments look fantastic, and it's not a terrible game by any means. And you know, people can log in. It's cross-platform too, which is really weird. So you got people on the PlayStation, on the Xbox, and on the PC all playing together in a very cool scenario. I think it's fun. I've been getting into it recently because I do enjoy games in addition to simulations. So don't hate me for liking to have fun, I guess, is what it comes down to. But WarThunder's got a lot of cool shit. If you like the military, you know, games that are bordering on simulation, this is probably one of the best ones out there. I mean, this is, you know, way better than Ace Combat. I'll put it that way. It's not that bad. So I'm going to leave it at that, guys. That is the Flight Sim news for the 22nd of April, 2020. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Feel free to hit that like button. And until next time.